In a few minutes, we're just want to fix some technical issues.
I'm waiting on the mayor.
I myself now.
I don't have you up on screen. Nope, we do. We've got the mayor. I'm missing. I don't have the mayor.
Yeah, I'm sure your camera on.
No.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay, we're good to go. You're live. Okay, fabulous. All right. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 11:01. I'd like to acknowledge that the City of Maple Ridge carries out its business on the traditional and unceded territories of the Katzie First Nation and the Kwantlen First Nation. And I'll hand it over to our corporate officer to start us off.
Thank you. Good morning. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public for playback on our website in accordance with Council Policy 3.12. Committee of the Whole is the initial venue for council review of information to ensure that council can debate and vote on issues at a future council meeting. No voting takes place on bylaws or resolutions during Committee of the Whole. For voting purposes, council has been provided with voting cards: green for in favor, red for opposed, yellow for point of order. For members of the public who would like to speak, who would like an opportunity to speak, this will be available to them later in the meeting during community forum.
Back to me. We're good? Okay. Okay, ready? Okay, perfect. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? It's been moved by Councillor Youssef, seconded by Mayor Rumi. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of March the 5th? Moved by Councillor Schiller, seconded by Councillor Youssef. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Great. Okay, there's no delegations today, so we're going to move on to 5.1. I'll hand it over to the corporate officer.
Excellent. The next item on the agenda is item 5.1. This is 2022236 RZ for property located at 12050 York Street. This is to allow for the future construction of a duplex. Staff are in attendance to present the application to council.
All right, go ahead, Mr. McLellan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. The application just mentioned is for a site that's designated urban residential. Its existing zoning is RS1, single detached residential, is proposed to be rezoned to RT1 2-unit urban residential. And the site area is 790 square meters, and this is to allow for the construction of a duplex. This is a subject site on the cadastral map. It's a site on the ortho photo showing the existing built environment in the area.
Oh, I don't have the.
This is a subject site showing the urban residential land
Point
use
of order?
designation.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Mr. Rumi.
our PowerPoints aren't moving
Yeah,
here.
I thought it was just me.
No,
Yeah.
it's all of us. Our PowerPoints are not working here.
At least
We-
you guys can see
it's
up
not-
there.
We
I
can see
can't.
it there, but you
I
can't.
can't. You're sharing the right screen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Give us a sec.
Technical mice are busy in the background creating problems for us today.
Well, you know, it
I
was a
know it's
long
not.
weekend.
It's not on the right.
It was a long weekend.
They had lots of time
Computer slowed
to
down.
mess with
after
everybody's
long.
work.
The computer ate too much chocolate.
It's primary. Yeah. It's not moving.
We're sharing the, so let's go to screen share and pick the other screen.
Yeah, I'm sharing one.
It's not.
It's
on
not a
Zoom,
big
it's sharing
deal.
completely different one. That's what we're trying to.
Yeah.
So we don't want to share that one. We want to share that one.
There we go.
My apologies.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this site is designated urban residential, and the rezoning is on the screen as previously described for the site to allow for the construction of a duplex. This is a site on the cadastral map. This is the lot on the orthophoto showing the built environment, and the site on the OCP map showing the urban residential designation. The application is noted is to rezone the subject property from RS1 single detached residential to RT1 2-unit or duplex urban residential. The RT1 zone requires a minimum lot size of 750 square meters, and after road dedication, the lot area is approximately 789 square meters. The minimum proposed width in the RT1 is 20 meters, and the lot depth is 27 meters. This property meets all these requirements. The applicant will be required to meet the off-street parking loading bylaw, providing 2 parking spaces in the garage of each unit as shown on the plans, and 1 unit being capable of providing roughed-in level 2 charging. As noted, this is urban residential in the official community plan, which provides for rezoning for the duplex application on a local street, and pursuant to the council amenity community contribution policy, $7,400 per unit charge would be levied for the additional unit at applicable at 3rd reading should the application proceed to adoption. This is the proposed site plan for the development for the duplex showing York Street on the left and the combined driveway entering York Street and the 2 units meeting the required setbacks. It should also be noted that this is not subject to a development permit, but as part of the rezoning, a covenant would be registered to secure the design of the duplex as has been done with other duplex applications over the last number of years. So just going forward, the terms and conditions would be required to be met before final adoption. That is road dedication on York Street as required, the covenant as noted for the duplex design, a covenant for stormwater management, removal of the existing building, and confirmation that the site investigate, and there's no site investigation required for the site, given that it's not being noted to be a contaminated site in the past, and that also we need a required engineer's letter confirming there's no underground fuel storage tanks, and if there is a stage one investigation would be required to confirm that's not a contaminated site, and that the voluntary contribution of $7,400 for the additional unit be payable at adoption should the application proceed. Madam Chair and Committee.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to refer this to council? Moved by Councilor Youssef, seconded by Councilor Schiller. To open it for questions. Councilor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff, I just wanted to ask about the permeable surface requirements. Thank you for including these right here in the report. So it says that 40%, a minimum of 40% of the lot area is required to be permeable. And it says that that's, can you just explain to me exactly like which bylaw or policy requires that?
That is in the zoning bylaw, the permeable surface requirements. So that's checked at building permit time, that there's sufficient permeable surface area to meet the 40%.
And is the zoning bylaw specific to the RT1 or is it more general?
It includes the RT1 and some other single family zones, not all zones, but a number of the zones in the zoning bylaw.
Got it. And has this been changed at all recently or how long has that been the standard?
It's been the standard for at least 4 years since the new bylaw, well, the update of the old bylaw, which is our new bylaw, was adopted, which was really just an interim update and reconfiguration of the old bylaw. So it's been at least 4 years.
Okay.
Can't speak to before that.
Thank you. That's all.
I have a quick question. I'm just wondering about timeline on this one. So just because we're in this sort of, this may not be something you can answer because it's not a new legislation pieces. Where are we in the timelines as to when these will stop coming to us? And if we approve this now, does it stay like this? Do we have the ability to edit? And when can we stop collecting CACs? And does that change at some sort of point, even if it's in this report?
Madam Chair, through the committee, so this is in the rezoning process at about 2/3 of the way through the process. And so whenever there's a rezoning, we collect the CAC, and with the provincial legislation in the future, when is changed to allow for more than one dwelling unit per parcel, then there would not be a rezoning and there wouldn't be a CAC collected under the community amenity contribution policy. So that's the hard deadline from the province, the deadline to make changes, which we haven't set it forth in a bylaw, but could include changes such as this is June 30th.
So June 30th is when these would shift to not come, or whenever we pass it on.
Yes.
And I guess that's the same for the ACC, the change from the CAC to the ACC.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and then everything is in route right now, or in process. So I've got Councilor Jose. If this goes through and then the next step is after June 30th, and they change these.
Madam Chair, I can't hear you, please.
Oh, sorry, is that a point of order?
Yeah, I was just saying that I can't hear what you're saying.
Because it would help if I turned on my mic.
Yes, it
Sorry,
will.
Councillor
Thank you.
Jose. So my
Thank
question
you.
was just around legislation and the timing.
So that's a good question about applications that are in process on June 30th. And this applies to this and a number of other applications. I think it's something I just talked to our manager of community planning and also just converse with our lawyer about that, about in-stream applications and what happens after June 30th on that.
Okay, yeah, it would be information that would be helpful to come back to us as we're making decisions. And do those decisions stay or do things completely change? So I'd be curious to have that information come back to us. Thank
Yes.
you. Mayor Rumi.
Just along the same lines with more of a procedural question, as we are doing a zoning change, public hearing is still applicable?
This application would have a public hearing as it came forward for, I think it's still subject to the public hearing because it came before November 30th of 2023. So it still requires one.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, the public hearings are if it doesn't align with the OCP, but if it aligns with the OCP, even if there's a zoning change, there's still no public
In
hearing.
the future for applications that come forward for first reading after November 30th of last year, do not require public hearing if they're in alignment with the OCP.
So it's
Correct.
the OCP. Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Sending it to council. Opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to 7.1, 2024-2028 Financial Plan Engagement Phase 2 results.
Excellent. We have, this is community priorities and feedback from the second phase of our public engagement. Staff are in attendance to present to council.
Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee. I'm presenting on the second phase of the engagement process with regard to the financial plan. So based on direction the council provided through a special workshop on February 13th, staff developed a comprehensive budget highlights document. Sorry, just wait for the presentation to come up here. I can keep going. A comprehensive budget highlight document. The second phase of engagement took place based on that documentation, which highlighted key projects, initiatives, including capital works projects that would be undertaken over the course of 2024, and the resulting tax impact, tax increase, and impact to the average home. Our engagement process took place on the Engage Maple Ridge platform, but input was also received by way of our budget inbox. The survey, which was hosted on the Engage Maple Ridge platform, was one single open-ended question, which sought feedback from the public and input from the public on the proposed budget document and the proposed budget. The engagement period took place between February 16th and March 22nd.
Are we just waiting for,
Mm.
yeah. What was it? The mics were busy in here.
Yay, no results. Hey, everybody's happy.
Just for the community that's joining us, if anyone's joining us online, we're just having some technical issues today, and that's just why we're having a bit of a delay between presenting some of the agenda items. If you can just hold tight and stay with us, we appreciate it.
Fantastic. So as I mentioned, it was a single open-ended question
Sorry
that was
about that.
posed to
Thank
the
you.
public from February 16th to March 22nd. Notification to the public about the survey and engagement on and awareness of the Engage Maple Ridge page was provided through newspaper advertisements over the course of that period, as well as a number of boosted social media posts, which gained traction across the community.
Oh, it's up there now. Okay. Sorry, it wasn't up there until just now. Doesn't want to switch?
Perfect. So the results of the
Just the day.
the results of the public input were then categorized. And so through the analysis of the responses, we identified 5 categories. Comments that were generally in support of the draft budget, including tax increase, those that were not in support of the budget, proposed service enhancements, as well as tax increase. Those that were in support of the service enhancements, but provided some feedback with regard to that tax increase. General commentary, which was the bulk of the input. And then we did have incidents of multiple responses from a single source, as well as some blank responses. So we wanted to do those comments justice and accurately represent them in terms of the input that was received. So based on all of those 5 categories, what we identified was a number of themes within each. So for those who identified that they were in support of the budget, a large contingent were just generally positive comments about the proposed service enhancements, as well as an understanding of the necessary, an appreciation for the necessary tax increase to be able to service all of those enhancements. However, we did identify a number of specific comments, particularly those that identified the support for arts and culture initiatives within the budget and support for those, as well as identifying some of the infrastructure investments and that they're both necessary, as well as that there are necessary investments to be able to support the community growth. There was acknowledgement from those in support of the fact that there is an affordability challenge, but recognizing that the investment is still necessary. There was an additional comment pertaining to a need for an increase in the commercial tax base as well to offset future costs. Those who are not in support identified affordability as being the major constraint and concerns pertaining to the tax increase. Some identified a recommended tax increase, which was significantly lower than the percentage that's being proposed at this point in time. Additionally, there was specific requests for infrastructure increases, particularly pertaining to transportation and congestion along the Lougheed corridor during peak times. So that was one of the most common comments, is that there's traffic congestion along Lougheed and that infrastructure needs to be evaluated. Some additional commentary around public safety was pertaining specifically to a sense of safety in the downtown core and some needed investments within that domain. And finally, a desire to increase the commercial tax base again. All of these comments are now being provided to staff as we move forward with enabling and acting on the proposed work plan for 2024 and for future budget considerations as well. Some additional themes for council to be aware of is that on the general commentary, which is the bulk of input that was received, is that there was a large contingent of comments pertaining to the Act and the arts and arts and culture in general. So prior to the last week of public engagement, the Art Center Theatre issued a call for support from the public, which actually generated a large influx of commentary. 47 comments were received in that last week pertaining specifically to arts and culture. And a desire for the public, from the public, to increase investments in arts and culture, and particularly the contract with the Act. We do have Parks, Recreation, and Culture staff in attendance today to speak to specific details about that ongoing negotiation if committee has any queries about that. Finally, there were a small contingent of those who were in support of the service enhancements, but identified that the tax increase was a significant affordability challenge. And then we have the 9 responses, which were duplicate entries as well as blank entries. So individuals who wanted to participate but did not provide specific commentary. So our next steps, based on all the information received, is that staff will be bringing forward the financial plan for first readings next week, and that will include the financial plan bylaw as well as the tax rate bylaw. So the financial plan bylaw being everything that's been discussed to date, and the tax rate bylaw, which actually enacts our ability to go forward and actually levy the tax increase. One of the constraints is that the bylaw, financial plan bylaw and tax rate bylaw needs to be set before the middle of May. And so we are on target for achieving that, that objective. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. So although this is just for information, I did double check with the corporate officer, and the motion is still to refer this to council next week. So can I get a motion to refer this to council? It's been moved by Mayor Rumi, seconded by Councillor Tan. And just quickly before we start on the questions, because you referenced the ACT Arts Center, just a caution to council with your questions that it is an active negotiations and we're in an open meeting. So to be cognizant of your questions when you're asking them and what we can talk about in a public meeting. Okay, I've got Mayor Rumi and then I've got Councillor Youssef. Go ahead, Mayor Rumi.
Can we go back to the slides where it says support doesn't support? I just want some clarification here. That, no, keep going. That one. Yes, that one. Thank you. Okay, so when we're looking at not in support, I can understand the affordability 31 comments, but when it says increase infrastructure and public safety, could we get a little bit more specific as to, are they wanting more or less, or they don't want to pay for it? Like, what are we getting here?
So through the chair, the comments are that there are specific infrastructure needs that need to be addressed, and they were just identified broadly within the commentary. So identifying that the commenters were not in support of the tax increase or the budget, but then also identified that there were gaps in infrastructure that they would like to have addressed. There was not a direct correlation or acknowledgement of the fact that there was a desire for additional investment or that was the rationale, but just that was a theme that was underlying that commenter.
So were there any, for instance, an increase in infrastructure, anything specific that came up? Like, obviously we're focused on Maple Ridge Move campaign with the widening of Abernathy and the bridge and so on and so forth. Were there more specific pieces to that?
Through the chair, it was acknowledging the traffic congestion along Lougheed Highway during peak traffic times. That was 3 of the 6 comments identified that as being a major issue or concern for those responders.
And in public safety?
Public safety was a sense of safety in the downtown, and the responders identified specific instances that they had experienced in the downtown, which really fostered the sense of wanting to increase investment in public safety.
So can we say that is it really an issue of not in support of the budget or something a little bit more specific? Because obviously in public safety, we've allotted 12 new RCMP, 16 new firefighters. So trying to understand, do they support that or didn't support that?
So these specific comments both identified not being in support of the proposed budget, but also identifying the issues. For example, a desire for
Fair
increase in public safety. So we are almost treating those as two separate items.
So
And
this was a yes, we want it, but we don't want to pay for it?
To some degree.
Yeah.
However, in the general commentary, that's where we saw specific comments about public safety without acknowledging whether the individual was in support or not in support of the proposed budget.
And one final question is the commercial tax base. We see in support and not in support. What are we referring to here?
Specifically that for both circumstances, that an increase in the commercial tax base to offset the tax impact on residential was desired. So just, continuing to, and this was noted even during the first round of engagement, that there is a strong public support for investing in economic development to shift
Perfect.
that tax base towards a more, a better division between the different tax bases.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Youssef.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to staff for the presentation. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff, with the 75 that are not in support, were they offering any alternatives, or did they have the opportunity to have any further input, or were there any alternatives that were offered through the question? I understand it was just a single open-ended question.
So responders took the opportunity to provide additional input and feedback. For the most part, it was centered around affordability, and specifically the commentary was regarding the fact that individual experiences in terms of income did not match the proposed tax increase. So that was one of the most common threads amongst those who identified affordability as a challenge. However, for the most part, that's where the commentary ended. There were a couple of instances that identified a lower tax rate. Though there was only 4 comments that identified a specific tax rate, and that was at approximately 3%.
Okay. Now, through the chair to staff again, when they're offering alternatives, I see here that we have this breakdown of enhancement highlights. That was offered to the public as well. They were able to see what that was. Were they able to, through the commentary that was provided, of course, kind of pinpoint where they would like to see more investment versus other areas where they weren't as keen, understanding, of course, as you mentioned earlier, that public safety and infrastructure, especially along the Lougheed, are those 2 main points. Was there anything else that they said, we'd rather not pay for this at this time?
Through the chair to Councillor Youssef, broadly speaking, we did in our analysis, we did our best to identify those projects. However, there wasn't a significant amount of commonality across the responses to identify trends or themes on specific projects. It appeared that across all of the responders, there were individual projects that were meaningful to those responders, and they identified those projects, but there wasn't a significant amount of commonality.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Thank you. Appreciate the summary from staff and the highlights. And I'm curious if staff council will have access to the raw data as well, so that we can see the wording of the comments that came in.
The data can be provided. Yes.
Wonderful. I will look forward to that. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Schiller.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to staff. I really like this document, the highlights. I think it's well put together and reflective of what we're trying to communicate. Has staff had any chance to discuss how they might ask different questions or structure things differently when we go to engage the public next year?
Through the chair to Councillor Schiller. One of council's and the city's objectives and key results is to optimize the business and financial planning process. As we're going through that evaluation of our process, we are considering what does engagement look like, how can we engage the public, and what sorts of questions ought we be asking throughout this process. So it is being considered. We've also received some feedback from responders, some phone calls that reflect that give us some indication of the types of questions that the public is wanting to answer and the feedback that they're looking to provide. So we're including all of this during our evaluation of our business and financial planning process.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Just checking in with Councillor Doze. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to refer this to council. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Community forum. I think we have a blurb for this, don't we?
The next item on the agenda is item 10, Community Forum. Participants in the Community Forum are reminded that there should be no discussion of public hearing bylaws which have not yet reached conclusion. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak to council. A second opportunity may be provided once all speakers in the queue have had an opportunity to speak. The time allotted for Community Forum is 15 minutes. If you wish to inquire about additional opportunities to address council, please contact the corporate officer. For members of the public who would like to speak during Community Forum, clearly state your name and city of residence before beginning your comments. If you're participating electronically, please use the raise hand icon, and when you are called upon, please turn on your camera. If you are attending the meeting in person, please come forward to the podium when the chair invites speakers.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody in chambers, and I just looked online and I'm not seeing anyone online that's from outside. I think others are seeing that as well. Okay, so anybody, just one last, anybody in chambers? And no one online. Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. So now just before we adjourn, we just want to do a notice of closed meeting so that we can do this before we go into our closed. So hand it over to our corporate officer.
Correct. So the meeting is going to be closed to the public pursuant to sections 90(1) and 90(2) of the community charter, as the subject matter being considered is relating to the following. We have the resolution up on screen.
Okay, so it's just a motion to close the meeting. It's been moved by Councillor Duick, seconded by Councillor Schiller. Any questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Great, thank you. And then now we move into closed. I don't need to adjourn. It'll adjourn at the end of closed, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for joining us today.